What?
Hello, this is Hank reporting from Geneva, New York, where it is currently a sunny 500 fucking degrees in my dorm room. I've spent about, I'd like to say, an hour and a half getting this all set up. I've gone through maybe like 6 different podcast softwares because I guess it's too hard to make BandLab last for more than 15 minutes, and Soundtrap sucks. So here we are. We're finally recording. Um, yeah, and I've been wanting to do this podcast for a long time. So I think it's a good time for us to get started. I don't know how much of this is going to get cut. I'm just kind of going to keep going. I have a general script. But yeah, today we're going to be talking about Virginia, specifically the gubernatorial election that is supposed to happen this November. And it's really an interesting election. I mean, you have a lot of very interesting candidates. For the Democrats, you have Abigail Spanberger, who is a former CIA operative, kind of just a mainstream Democrat, versus the Republican candidate, Winsome Earl Sears, who's the current Republican lieutenant governor of Virginia. So it's interesting. Both of them are women, so I don't know. Big W for women, I guess. But I mean, I don't like either of these candidates. They both sort of suck. I mean, Abigail Spanberger, which we're going to focus on, is a UVA alum, and Winsome Earl Sears, who was sort of almost like a DEI candidate for Glenn Youngkin, so that he could win or attempt to win the black vote in rural Virginia, who is kind of just insane. I mean, she really doesn't have that much of an insane political career. She kind of was a state politician, career politician, Christian, Republican. And so we're going to get into all of that. But before we start, I would just like to say that we kind of have to get into some of the context behind why Virginia is important politically and why I feel that the greater American sort of view on Virginia is very flawed. Namely, is that Virginia has a lot of very important industries. Northern Virginia and Norfolk specifically are home to defense contractors. They are home to multiple important law firms, multiple important banks, multiple important lobbying groups. And as governor of Virginia, you have the ability to pressure these groups. For example, if Youngkin actually, gave a fuck about his America First policy, maybe he would have pressured Lockheed Martin through revoking their tax-free status in Virginia if they kept giving Israel arms. I mean, like, if you had a genuinely progressive governor of Virginia, you could force all of these arms and defense contractors to stop providing arms to Israel. You don't need a national ban to hurt and pressure the IDF. You can do it with the Virginia governor office. And it's the same for a lot of law firms. There's a lot of law firms that, you know, operate in extremely corrupt manners. There's a lot of tax fraud and a lot of white-collar financial crimes through both Delaware and Virginia, but that the Virginia governor could clamp down upon. And also, I mean, the CIA is based in Virginia. The United States Navy is partially based in Virginia, in Newport News. The Pentagon is in Virginia. Like, Virginia is a very important state. And so this election, which kind of reflects, I mean, both candidates are appealing to nobody. You know how Joe Biden triangulated his message in his brief 2024 campaign towards like six people. Like six people. Like no one fucking liked his campaign. It's kind of the same. No one in Virginia really likes either of the candidates. They're just kind of voting party line. And I think it's very sad. And I think that the DSA and other progressive organizations should care more about Virginia, because Virginia is a state with extreme rural poverty, with a lot of economic downturn, and with growing ghettoization of minority neighborhoods, as well as a growing underclass of people who are, I mean, the cost of living crisis is everywhere, but in Virginia it's really bad because there's a lot of gentrification. There's just a growing class of people who have been gentrified, who have been pushed out. And it doesn't always have to be on racial boundaries. There are just poor white communities that are getting pushed out. For example, the neighborhood of Tuckahoe in Richmond used to be one of the poor areas of Richmond, but now it's all suburbia. And so people got pushed out of that area, and they're now facing a lot of economic hardship. And there is no real progressive wing in Virginia. I mean, there are some Northern Virginia progressives. There's Tim Kaine, who is a complicated figure, but I believe has made some important progressive strides. There is, it's not, there's Don Beyer, who is my representative, who I think does a pretty decent job. Although I think that he really sort of follows party line. But, like, there's no real progressive mobilization in Virginia outside of maybe a few local offices. And I am making this podcast to both share my political view, but also to bring attention to some of these issues in states where they don't get national news coverage. Virginia is not getting national news coverage, and the people in Virginia are not getting that national news coverage. So, let's talk about Abigail Spanberger. She is boiled chicken as a candidate. I mean, that's really how I have to explain to her. I mean, if you've seen her campaign ads, they suck. I'll play one here. This is the most recent one, and you can kind of guess why it's bad.
Too many politicians talk when they should listen.
Season of gridlock in Virginia.
And divide instead of unite.
New unemployment claims in Virginia are skyrocketing.
Enough is enough. I'm Abigail Spanberger. I believe that public service is too important for political nonsense. That's what my parents taught me. My mom was a nurse. My dad went to college on the GI Bill and spent his career in law enforcement. When I was in law enforcement and then working counterterrorism at CIA, we didn't do politics. We did our jobs. I broke down some of the divides, stood up to both parties, and was named the most bipartisan member of Congress from Virginia. As governor, I'll work to lower costs, let people keep more of their money, and make Virginia schools the best in the nation. Because as a mom of 3 girls in public school, I know the future of our Commonwealth matters so much more than any petty political fight. So I'll always put Virginia first.
Spanberger for governor. Service. Country. Commonwealth.
I mean, like, Jesus Christ. I mean, are we really going to keep doing this, guys? It's not good. Like, what the fuck is she saying? Like, oh, we get to keep more of the money. Like, what does that mean? I mean, Kamala was doing the same shit where she would just like sort of say talking points, and we just kind of had to assume that that meant something. I mean, like, no one cared. People don't like the CIA. I don't fucking understand. So many people in government, so many Democrats think that like the average American likes the CIA or the FBI or law enforcement in general. No, most Americans don't really fuck with the CIA or the ATF or the FBI. They probably fuck with their local police, but like they don't like them. I mean, like, what more do we have to say that like the average American doesn't like American imperialism or American fascism? It's just the facts, especially the average Democrat. Okay, but Abigail Spanberger's campaign has been, I guess, successful. She's leading by 7%, which is actually not as good as she was before. The most recent polls by Roanoke College show that she is leading among independents, but has lost ground, specifically in the Richmond area. The first polls by VCU showed her up by about 9 to 11 points. Which, you know, I mean, it's still a pretty safe race for her, I guess. She can still lose it. We still have a few months to go. And the margin of errors of all of these polls have been pretty big, about 4 to 5%. But it seems like she's going to win. And that's the reason why I think I'm going to talk about her more. But I think it's now a good time to pivot to our other candidate. Now, the Republican candidate for governor, Winsome Earl Sears, is a former Marine. She went to community college. She got her start in the Virginia House of Delegates. She's an immigrant. She's from Jamaica. But she immigrated when she was young. She's been a U.S. citizen for a long time. She ran for the U.S. Representatives, the U.S. House of Representatives, but lost. She also ran for the U.S. Senate, but she was mostly for her political career, part of the. She won 31% of the vote against Bobby Scott in 2004. Like, she hasn't really had that crazy of a political career. She ran a plumbing, electrical, and home appliance business. Like, she's kind of like a nobody, which is a mean thing to say, but it's not wrong. She kind of came from the outside to become lieutenant governor. She was part of the Virginia Board of Education briefly. She supported Trump in 2020, and she was part of the Political Action Committee, Black Americans to re-elect the president. But either way, her win as lieutenant governor was a surprise, just like Youngkin's was. She definitely she definitely was able to ride the Youngkin wave. All right. Her political legacy is definitely tied to Glenn Youngkin, which is, I guess, a bonus for her because Youngkin is a popular governor. He has 49% approval rating within Virginia. He briefly got some clout as a potential presidential candidate in 2024 before he announced that he would not be running. And she kind of, I mean, she doesn't have a campaign. It's weird. All of her campaign ads are on Facebook or Instagram. I'm assuming there's not too much money, because I mean, Abigail Spanberger has been running TV ads. She's been sort of, teasing online that she would redistrict Virginia and gerrymander it to get back at Texas or whatever the fuck. Like, she's been doing Newsom shit. But, like, this lady, Earl Sears, really isn't doing much of anything, and she's still gaining in the polls. I don't think she's going to win. I think that Virginia has this weird thing where if you're a governor, you can't have concurrent terms. So, probably the Virginia Republican Party is sort of just running the successor to Youngkin, with sort of the idea that maybe that will keep the Virginia Republicans relevant enough for Youngkin to run again in the next gubernatorial cycle. Youngkin has sort of been teasing that he might run for Senate or House of Representatives in the meantime. So I think she is kind of just, I don't know. I mean, the Virginia Republican Party is weird. They kind of just put anyone as a candidate. They don't really do primaries. They don't really do very good selection for candidates. And they kind of just fucking run you if you want to run, if you have enough money to do it. So let's start talking about Abigail Spanberger again, because she is presumed to be the next governor of Virginia. And she represents a very dangerous part of the Democratic Party. She, during her tenure as a representative, voted against the HEROES Act. She has openly supported Israel. She supported Glenn Youngkin when he tear gassed college protesters at VCU. She portrays herself as this sort of moderate Democrat, moderate progressive. She is young for Democrat standards, but she's sort of like this insidious force, very much similar to Alyssa Slotkin, where her goal is to diffuse progressive voices within the Democratic Party. Spanberger won through a very narrow margin her House of Representatives race, which now will likely be lost in these upcoming midterms. It's not looking good. And she always kind of was this sort of bland political candidate who was mostly focused on maintaining the status quo. And I think the best way to exemplify this is her position on the Green New Deal. When asked about it when she was running, she said that the Green New Deal was a great idea and that AOC had some amazing policy points, but no, she didn't support it. She would never support it. It's inflationary. It's going to cost too much or whatever. She was a Biden dead ender. She thought that Biden was fine, right? Like she is kind of just this, like, she portrays herself as a progressive, just like Alyssa Slotkin does. But in reality, she is the same bland center-right messaging that is focused on idealist rhetoric, on sort of this precipice that neoliberalism is just sort of the solution to everything, and that you just kind of have to go along with it. And this is not a candidate that you want to have as governor of Virginia. And while I think that she is better than the other candidate, Earl Sears, who is like, I mean, Earl Sears is a conspiracy theorist who thinks that Trump won 2020 and is anti-same-sex marriage, right? Like, she's not great either. But Spanberger is almost like, it's like taking just like, it's like putting a poison pill in your meals. She will inevitably hurt the Democratic Party. If she is elected governor, she will either A, do nothing, which will probably lead to Youngkin coming back and becoming governor, or she will enact sort of this neoliberal policy agenda which further causes housing discrimination and further causes rural poverty and sort of allows the Virginia Democratic Party to lose more and more ground. And either of these are bad. And I think it's very important that we look at Youngkin's governorship. He was elected as sort of this spunky outsider. You know, he won Loudoun County, which was like crazy. No Republican had won Loudoun County since like the 80s, right? It's the suburbia, right? This is wealthy, supposed to be woke, like sort of wealthy Northern Virginia suburbia, but he won because he got the support of all of the soccer moms. He won the soccer mom vote. He won despite being anti-abortion, which is an incredibly important factor in Virginia. I mean, Virginia is one of the few states where abortion is a more important issue than even immigration. And so he comes in, throws like 500 tantrums because his first 100 days basically got blocked by the Virginia House of Representatives. They wouldn't pass any of the bills he proposed. And he would throw tantrum. He would implement these Virginia Department of Education policies, banning CRT or banning gender affirming care in schools. Like, that just like hurt kids, you know? He just like fucked with kids. Like, he fucked up education. He passed all these tax cuts for wealthy companies. He went and he allowed Facebook and Meta and all these other companies to build massive data farms in Loudoun County, displacing farmers and hurting the rural economy. And then just sort of proceeded to sit on his ass for the last 2 years. He hasn't passed any major legislation since 2023. And he's kind of just been like a nothing burger. He just threw a bunch of tantrums. And, you know, the past few years just sort of goes to show that, like, Virginia is very much so a state of the status quo, and there is no real opposition to the status quo. Even Youngkin, who was a break from the status quo, he was a right-winger. He was right-wing. He was blocked, right? There's no left or right mobilization in Virginia that can actively change policy. I mean, if there was, say, a Trump candidate, which you could call Youngkin a Trump candidate, he is charismatic. He is a populist. Even he could not go in and have the right-wing agenda implemented fully. And as this is happening, you see rural poverty and fentanyl use spiking. You see massive gentrification. You see prices rising. it's increasingly impossible for teachers to live in the cities. There are a lot of people leaving Virginia, and it sort of is this state where there's no one for the people to truly be represented by. And I think, sort of to just conclude, Virginia should be given the attention by the DSA and by American progressive, by the American left. There is no state that should be not given that chance to have that popular mobilization. I feel like the DSA almost exclusively focuses on states where there is already left-wing mobilization. States like Washington or California or New York or the New England states or Texas. And I think this is a major flaw by the national DSA, where they really don't give a fuck about states like Virginia or Iowa or North Carolina or even Alabama. And I think if we're going to actually make a real leftist movement on the United States, we need to have viable opposition to Democratic candidates like Abigail Spanberger. Abigail Spanberger is the status quo that we should be fighting. But she was able to run for governor of Virginia uncontested, at least by any Democrats. And if you want to help, reach out to the DSA, attend their meetings, send them an email, tell them, listen, I am a resident of this state. I would like to become a DSA endorsed candidate and run for local office, right? There are so many bullshit offices, but once you're in the office, you can make some amount of change. No matter how marginal, you can make a little bit of change. And when that happens, other people are going to see you and they're going to join their local government. And that's going to grow and grow and grow. Like, look at Zoran Mamdani, right? Zoran Mamdani has inspired multiple other people to also run for similar political positions, such as Omar Fateh in Minneapolis, or Kat Abu-Ghazala, who's running for Illinois House of Representatives seat in Illinois. There is progressive mobilization to be done, and we can't just forget about some states. And if you believe that Republican states aren't able to mobilize around a leftist, then you are mistaken. There have been so many red states that have had DSA candidates run for state or local offices and win. All right? People care more about whether or not they're going to get health care than about whatever bullshit culture war issue that the Republicans are hawking. And now this is not to pull a Hassan Piker and say, oh, trans issues can wait until we're done with the economy. No. What I'm saying is Republicans will ignore whether you're pro-trans or not if you're going to give them health care and better wages, right? People care more about what's in their pockets than what's in their minds. And so I think in general, to conclude, because we're already reaching the 30-minute mark, or close to it. I don't know how it's going to come out in editing. Participate in your elections, no matter how marginal your office is, no matter how marginal the state is, no matter how red it is, no matter how blue it is. There is always more ways to mobilize leftist thought.